Welcome, everyone, to Season 2, Episode 2 of Geek Dad's Novel Ideas. So I am Eric Wex, and with me is James Floyd Kelly, and we're switching roles today, so I get to introduce the podcast. Say
I'm
hi.
nervous. I'm so nervous.
So I'm asking the questions today because one of the things we want to do is as a technology-driven website, we have a whole lot of people who care about tech, and we also have James, who has written how many books? I know it's over 20.
I think I'm up to 27 now.
27 books, most of them tech-related, all of them tech-related?
All but maybe one or two, yeah.
All but maybe one or two tech-related. So if you've ever had the idea of, I know more about C++, Drupal, iPads, which headphones are best, I don't know, all that stuff that you can do with writing a technology book, how to use Raspberry Pi to do XYZ, those kind of things. This is your chance to listen in as we talk to James about how he gets that stuff done and how he's made a career out of being a tech writer. So, James, let me start with this question. How did you begin? How did you get started on doing this?
Sure. Well, my background, I have two degrees. I have an engineering degree and I have an English degree. So those two, kind of go hand in hand for technology writing. I always knew I wanted to be a technology writer. I knew it in high school. I used to read tech manuals and critique them and find mistakes and think, man, I could write better than this. And so when I was in engineering school, it just was, it just seemed sort of natural to also take some writing classes. I used to tell people that I signed up for every ENG course, and that was the joke. But I did end up with those two degrees, and basically I worked at a job, or a couple jobs actually, after college as sort of a tech writer. I did a lot of computer and networking and IT work, but inevitably the companies usually found out that I was a good writer, or at least I think I'm a good writer, and they would have me write manuals or how-to books or how-to things for the employees. And then I did that for, almost 8 or 9 years. And then in 2006, somehow, some way, the Lego company got my name. They were going to be coming out with a new robotics kit, not the RIS or RCX, which was their first one, but the NXT, which was the second robot kit. Somehow they found me. I got a phone call from Denmark, and we started a conversation. They said, basically, look, we're coming out with this new robot kit, and we want books on it. Would you be willing to write a book on it? Now, part of the reason they found me was that I did have some hands-on experience in college and after college with robots of various nature. So probably that's how they found me. But I wrote one book on Lego robotics, teaching kids how to build robots and program them. That book turned into 2 books the next year, and then I think I wrote 4 books the next year. And since about 2010, I've been a full-time technology writer, mainly books, although I do write articles, and I do occasionally write a white paper or things like that. But since about 2010, I've been producing anywhere from 4 to 6 books per year, which is about all I can handle.
So how do you get your topics? I mean, I think for most of our audience, it's going to start not like that, right? Where you know that you're going to want to be a technology writer. It's going to start with, I am a topic-driven person. I think I can write a better book on this than I've seen.
Sure.
But how do you get your topics?
Well, I do know a lot of technology writers that sort of fell into it like I did, and then there's others who basically just contacted publishers and said, hey, I know this topic really well and I want to write a book. And what's really interesting in this day and age with ebooks, I can't say this blanket across all the publishing world. I only know the technology world, but technology publishers right now are really, really hot for new authors, new topics. Because ebooks, in the past when it was just print books, every year, if you wrote on Technology X, in a year it would be obsolete. That book was sort of, you'd find it in the $1, $5 bin. And the technology publishers, I think, quickly realized that their solution, or at least this is what I'm getting, is their solution to this problem is ebooks, because they don't have to put them on shelves. They're digital. So and they're very easy to update. So what publishers are doing right now is they are, again, if you're interested in writing a technology book, this is the time to strike, because the technology publishers that I know are always asking, hey, do you know anybody that wants to write a book? I have introduced at least 4 or 5 colleagues, friends, a couple of them from Geek Dad, who are now writing or have written technology books. And that's I really enjoy that. I like being able to point someone at a publisher and say, hey, Mr. Editor, my friend here knows this topic really well, and all she or he needs is some hand-holding, and they can write you a book. And so far, it's worked out well. But for me, here's what I do. I contact a publisher, and it used to be that I had to submit a formal proposal. You go to a website of a publisher, and it says, hey, you want to write for us? Click here. You download a Word document. It's a template, and you fill it in with your idea, and you send it in, and you wait. I've kind of gotten past that now, where my editors, the publishers I work with, I can just shoot them an email and say, hey, I got this great idea. Here's a paragraph. Do you want it, yes or no? And usually I'll get a yes or a no. I don't have to go through that whole formal process anymore, because I think I've proven myself. But if you are interested in writing technology books, if you are really good at a topic, or you think you could write a better book, the best place to start is to go to the bookstore, find the books that you feel you could write on, or the topics you could write on. Note the publisher's name on the spine of the book. Google those publishers, find their websites, go visit their website, and almost every one of them will have a link or a tab that says, hey, write for us, or authors click here. That's how you start the ball rolling.
So in the tech world, you're not agented, are you?
No, and that's what's funny is
interesting.
Yeah, I just had a friend who wanted to write a psychology book.
Yep.
And I don't know any psychology publishers, but I told her, what I do, what I just explained about how I just go to the website, find a publisher, and contact them that way. She reached out to a publisher. She went to the bookstore. She found a bunch of books that she wanted that were similar to her topic. She contacted the publishers, and almost every one of them said, hey, hold up. You need to get an agent and let them contact us. And that blew me away, because I just figured a nonfiction title, like a psychology book, would not need an agent. But no, most technology publishers that I've worked with, and I've written for 5, I believe. I'd have to do the count real quick. 5. I've never been asked to hire an agent or to get an agent. I have been approached by one agent before who saw my books on the shelf and contacted me and said, hey, I want to represent you. And my thing was, why do I want to pay you 15%? When I have a direct door, I just email my editors or publishers whenever I have an idea. It just didn't make sense. But no, technology, most of the technology writers that I know personally, and I know a dozen or more who write tech books, we are all unagented.
That's interesting. That's not the case in most fields. So
no.
That's cool stuff. So how do you get your ideas? Now, what happens today?
Right. I do keep my finger on the pulse. There's websites that I check almost daily, if not weekly, to see what the new hardware is coming out, what new software is coming out, what's breaking news in the areas that interest me. I tend to focus on newer technologies like 3D printing and robotics and
HoloLens. You're going to write your next book on HoloLens. I know it.
Well, you know what? Chances are that's kind of far out. Nobody knows when they're going to release it, and most publishers are not willing to commit to a book project on something that doesn't yet exist. So, but when it comes out, I'll examine it. Let's say that was an idea I wanted.
Okay.
Normally, what I do is, if it's a piece of hardware or software that's not out yet, normally it's very easy as a published technical writer to reach out to their PR department or their marketing or directly to the company and say, hey, my name is James Floyd Kelly. I'm a tech writer. Here's a link. You can verify that I've got all these books written. I would really like to write a book on HoloLens. Sometimes these companies are very eager to have books written, and so a lot of times you can arrange to get a test product sent to you for evaluation. Sometimes the publishers handle that. Sometimes the publishers are approached by hardware and software companies, And the hardware and software companies say, hey, we want a book. We want books, books, books. So they contact the publishers, and then the publishers come to me and say, hey, there's this new thing called HoloLens. We can get you one if you're interested in writing a book. Quite honestly, I pass on a lot of those because I typically only write on ideas that really interest me and fire me, because if I'm not interested in the topic, it'll come out in the writing. It'll be stale, boring. It'll be just a real hard work to write a chapter. If I'm excited about something, I can crank out a chapter in a day or two.
I think that's one of the things you learn as a geek dad, really, really fast, is it's so easy to get offered a product, and the first time it happens, you're like, yes, whatever, somebody has given me free stuff, yes, right? And then you get about 6 of those, and it's not so cool anymore to get free stuff if you're not really that interested in it, because suddenly you're on the hook for articles that you really don't want to write. And it's really miserable. I could imagine writing a book on something I didn't want to talk about.
Yeah, and the tech publishers are pretty good about, after a while, they start identifying kind of what areas you're good at or interested in. Now, what I really like about technology publishing is it's one of those areas where you can pitch an idea. You don't necessarily have to have written the book already. You can pitch the idea, and if they like it, sometimes they'll just say, yes, send us a table of contents or an outline, tell us, how the book's going to be laid out, and you can start developing the book, and they'll contract it. Sometimes they'll push back and say, you know what, we like your email, but we really want a more formal proposal, and that's okay. Sometimes I do that. But what's really cool is I can just sometimes send an email to one editor and say, hey, I got this really great idea that I want to write a book on, and they'll say, let's do it. And then a lot of times it's like, I actually have to write this book. Sometimes I pitch ideas that I'm excited about, but I may not necessarily be an expert at. And that's the one thing as a technology writer you have to be really careful of, because you can be given, the publishers will give you time. For example, let's say a new piece of software is coming out and they've been contacted by the software company and they want you to write the book, and you say, okay, you still got to go learn it. You can't write the book if you don't know how to use the software. So there's a learning period that you have to build in. I frequently have to sometimes build in a month before I actually start writing, to actually sit down and become immersed in the hardware or software. And even then, sometimes after you write a book, people will say, oh, he's an expert on it, when really you just know how to use it, and you can write a book for a beginner or an intermediate level. You got to be careful. You don't ever want to say you can write a book at the pro level, be an expert, unless you really are an expert at it.
Right. I think, I can see how that could get some of us. That I would end up doing that badly. So, what else do you want to tell our audience about this? Is it lucrative? Can you make a lot of money writing tech books? I mean, four books a year.
Yeah. Well, it varies from publisher to publisher. With technology writing, you still deal with what they call advances and royalties. Yep. The advance is amount of money that you negotiate with the publisher to get started writing the book, and then I'll just throw some numbers out here. Some of the publishers start on the low end, which is an advance of like maybe $5,000 or $6,000, and you don't get that all up at front with most publishers. What they do is they'll break it up. They'll say, okay, we'll pay you 25% of your advance when we get the first 4 chapters. You'll hit the 50% advance when you hit the 50% mark, and like that. So by the time you actually finish the book, the draft, you'll have gotten your 100% advance. The high end for technology publishers that I've seen floats around the $10,000 to $12,000 mark. It depends on, there's a lot of factors. Like if it's a hot topic, sometimes the publishers will really offer a nice advance because they want you to get that book written so they can get it on the shelves and start selling.
Wow. So the high end for a tech book is $10,000. How long are you seeing residuals? Like again, since technology is changing all the time, your books don't last very long, right?
It depends on the book. Some books, like the Lego books, when Lego released the NXT, that product was out for 7 years with no update. They only recently came out with what's called the EV3, which is the third evolution of the Lego robotics. But for almost 7 years, because I put out a book almost right when that product came out, I had a book producing income for me for 7 straight years. Every quarter, I would get a royalty check, and I still get royalty checks on those books because those robot kits are in school systems where they still buy my books, and so I'm not making I'm not making 100,000, 200,000, $1 million like fiction like those rare fiction writers that you hear.
Rare fiction writers is the word.
Yeah, no, technology writing is a career. So basically, the more books you put out in a year, I always tell people when you're going to write technology books, take your advance and assume that's all you're going to get. No royalties. Royalties are just gravy. If you get $10,000 to write a book, and you can write 5 books a year on average, you're generating a $50,000 a year income. Don't assume you're going to make any royalties. Now, if it's a hot topic, if it's a good topic, and the book is popular and getting 5 stars and things like that, royalties will begin to trickle in probably 6 months to a year after you release the book. So, like me, once you get 25, 26 books on the shelf, and most of my books are still in print, even if one book's only producing $100 or $200 every quarter, when you got 26 books that are doing that, it pays. Now, I do have books that bombed. For like this is my favorite one. I wrote a book years ago on netbooks. When they first came out, a publisher said, "We want a book on netbooks." I wrote one, and then guess what? The next year, netbooks were gone.
That's awesome.
Because the iPad came out. That book actually, that you don't ever pay your advance back. You get to keep that. But that book has never earned back its advance. I've never made any additional royalties on that book.
So for a fiction writer, that can be the death knell. That can be a big deal if you don't pay out your advance. In the tech world, I mean, the company owns that, right? Like if the technology disappears, they don't blame the writer.
That's right.
For not paying back.
That's right.
Well, you know what? That always goes fast. We are actually out of time. You have anything else you want to conclude with?
If you think you have an idea for a technology book, if you really want to write a book, there are publishers out there. You got to hunt them down. But there is a publisher that is probably waiting for you to contact them and say, "Hey, that software X, I can write you a killer book on it." You got to start it. And technology writing, this is probably going to be a second show, but technology writing is a different animal than fiction writing. There's a different attack that you have to do when you're sitting there writing chapters and step by steps and things like that. So that again, that's a whole other conversation that could take hours.
That we need to have in a couple of episodes. We will come back to this, viewers and listeners. So we'll definitely do this. Thanks, Jim. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun for like 20 some odd episodes asking you about what you do, and now you've turned the tables on me, and
it's gonna be good. I'm actually excited about this. We'll get into some more topics on technical writing and nonfiction writing, which is something both of us know about. So, again, I am Eric Wex. I'm a science fiction writer and a geek dad, and with me today was James Floyd Kelly, tech writer and fellow geek dad. So, thank you for listening, and we will be back next week.